Welcome to the Aliens and Cowboys Podcast. I'm Garrett. With me tonight, co-host Nate, Joe, and special guest Nelly.
Yo.
What's up, everybody?
Yeehaw!
Woo!
Jeez, bunch of cowboys around here.
Oh, yeah.
Well, tonight, one of my personal favorites, Hell or High Water, written by Taylor Sheridan, directed by David Mackenzie. This is great. This is the start of our Taylor Sheridan trilogy. We're only going to cover Hell or High Water, Wind River, my personal favorite, Sicario. We will not do Sicario 2. Before we get into that, we obviously have a lot of pop culture to go over. Yeah. We are going to definitely limit the amount of pop culture that we have tonight, though. So, first things first, Nate and I went and saw Spider-Man Far From Home. It was okay. Nate?
Yeah, it was okay. I don't think it was worth $185 million in the first 6 days it was open. It was a good film, enjoyable. I laughed a lot. It was very well written. It fit very well into the culture of the MCU, and it played very practical. If you haven't seen it yet, so no spoiler alerts with Mysterio.
Okay.
So I'll leave it at that.
Yeah, I would say my concern with the movie, too, isn't so much that it was a bad movie, and it's not a bad acting performance by Gyllenhaal. It's that the villain just isn't strong. And coming off of a strong villain like Thanos, maybe you don't want to have stuff like destruction, but you need something because at no point did I feel like we're in danger here. And that kind of takes away from the movie.
Yeah, fair enough. It's something I've been really eager to see. I probably won't be able to catch it in theaters, unfortunately, but I'll definitely have to check it out once they release it on Blu-ray and everything. But I think it would be very difficult, just like you were saying, to follow up Thanos with the end to their current phase with the Spider-Man movie. And I thought that was a really interesting decision that they made because they didn't decide to finish up with the current phase with the second Infinity War movie. They chose to finish out the current phase with Spider-Man. And fortunately, across the board, it did do very well for them, but that was kind of a risk, I have to imagine. Like, hey, we're going to culminate everything with Infinity War. Oh, actually, just kidding. It's kind of actually Spider-Man that we're going to finish everything out with, so...
Yeah, I think they could have toned it down. Like, the only worst thing that they could have done is to jump to, like, maybe a Black Widow who doesn't have superpowers, or Hawkeye, maybe.
Okay.
Like, they're kind of naturally turning it down, but it still seemed like such a de-amplification of where they were before.
Sure.
For Thanos.
Okay. Gotcha.
Okay. Another thing, anybody else real quick?
As you mentioned, I will kind of table a lot of what I'm very excited about, but obviously with Comic-Con and all the different trailers that dropped, there's a ton of stuff out there, which I'm sure a lot of you listening have already checked out, but being a huge fan of The Witcher, the fact that we now finally have that trailer that dropped, you guys, very excited. Very, very excited for this. I think for me personally, I had minor concerns about it, but overall was very optimistic, I would say, and this trailer has pretty much alleviated any concerns I did have about it. It looks awesome, and it looks like they're going to do a couple very smart things in terms of pulling from the books, and we already have established the fact that they're going to follow the books closer. They're not really focusing on adapting the games to the TV series. They're adapting the books to the TV series. So you can already see from the trailer some very iconic moments that are actually from the books that they're going to be incorporating into the series. So it looks awesome. I'm very, very excited for it.
Did you guys see the trailer?
Nope, I haven't.
From someone who has only played the games, and I did see the teaser trailer, I am much more confident that I will really enjoy this series
Nice.
after seeing the newest trailer on it.
I haven't played the game, so I'm not familiar.
Same here, Nelly.
I don't know.
I'm not really excited
I
for it.
heard it was a good game, though. I'll give it that.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think it's
phenomenal.
rated like 10 out of 10 or 9 out of 10 on a lot of the very high scoring.
Oh, yeah.
It's no Red Dead Redemption.
No,
Ooh, I don't know about that. Having played both and being a huge fan
I
of
disagree.
both, I would have to think before I respond to that completely.
But
they're that close, though, in my mind.
Well, let's put it that way. It actually is worth the debate, though. Like, because we haven't played Red Dead, we haven't played Witcher. I personally think Red Dead might be the best game I've ever played. That's how impressed that game, impressed with that game I was.
Yeah, absolutely.
See,
it would
never fails.
To be the complete counterpart to what you guys just said, I have not played Red Dead, but I have played The Witcher. So it's probably.
But we never lie to you.
Truth only here, Nate. Yeah. But having played
#truth.
both and loving both series, it's that's such a tough call to make. I would confidently say, and know there's people out there screaming about, what about Legend of Zelda and Mario and all this stuff, but Red Dead Redemption and The Witcher 3 specifically are like top 2 games of all time. Like truly, just top tier games right there, for sure.
Okay. Speaking of trailers, though, and we're not going to cover it on this, obviously, this particular podcast.
Right.
The Watchmen official trailer came out.
Yeah.
It's amazing. It looks great. We'll break that down when we actually cover the Watchmen movie coming up in a week or two on the Watchmen for Nixon podcast. Go out and subscribe to that now. That's that podcast spinoff for the Aliens and Cowboys production that Joe and I will cover for the upcoming fall show. We don't have a release date for the show. Do have a release month.
Yes.
It's going to be October.
October.
Thank goodness.
Coming up quick.
Yes.
Be here before we know it.
I know. I was afraid I was going to be on my honeymoon. Nate, you're going to have to take over.
Nobody wants that.
Nate, you're running this thing. Field promotion. Let's go.
Yeah.
Weird. The podcast went public and it tanked.
Hi, I'm Gary.
It means you gotta actually watch the show.
That is not what I sound like, Nate. So, a couple other things. We want to give an RIP to Rutger Hauer. Passed away
Yeah,
today.
that's right.
75. He was the villain in the original Blade Runner.
Yep.
We were talking earlier about, I know him from the villain as the Buffy the Vampire Slayer movie with Christy Swanson and Luke Perry. Personal favorite. That's a good movie. That's funny. If you've never seen that as a vampire movie,
Never seen it.
it's just classic.
Before all the Buffy fans from the series,
Yes.
watch the original movie that
Yeah,
came out for that.
it was really good.
Yeah.
So, and the last but not least, the only other thing I have to add is I was reading today that Hitchhiker's Guide might be getting a TV show on Hulu. So, if you're a fan of that, might be exciting. Anybody?
My
fan of that?
father-in-law
I'm familiar with
said the most recent rendition of the movie was like did it such a huge disservice.
The one with Martin Freeman.
Yeah.
There's been multiple Hitchhiker's Guides movies.
Oh no, just that one in general did such a disservice that it ruined that potential franchise.
Oh, that's a hot take. There's a lot of people I would know that love that movie that have probably never read the book or going to read the book.
I don't know. He's very particular about old school stuff, and well, for instance, I'll give you for instance. How many movies did he give me? He gave me the original Hulk TV series
With Lou Ferrigno?
on yeah, with Lou Ferrigno.
Nice, okay.
The
Hold on, wait,
original
wait.
Westworld.
Is he trying to say Lou Ferrigno is better than the current Hulk?
Yes, absolutely, and he's unrelenting.
We're gonna have
His
to get
opinion.
we're gonna have to get your father-in-law on the podcast.
I know, right? He'd
Current
love
Hulk
that.
who? Mark Ruffalo? Or
Yeah, or any of the Hulk. You
Edward Norton?
just go ahead and pick Eric Bana.
Eric Bana.
Pick a Hulk. You're telling me Lou Ferrigno is better than any of those
Yeah.
guys.
I wasn't a fan of Bana,
That's okay.
but
Nobody is.
Well, he gave me the original Westworld, the HBO series that it was based off of,
Yul
the
Brynner.
Michael Crichton movie
Yeah.
or book series. What else did he give me? A whole bunch of Far Side comics, which is a big fan of, which I
Nice.
need to work through. I can enjoy that humor. And then what was the other thing he gave? King Kong, the original 1920s King Kong, to review the special effects back then versus what they are now.
Nice.
In retrospect, to understand how big of a jump and leap forward that was in its time of day.
Totally.
Okay.
That's really cool, man.
Okay.
Well, I still think, personally, when it comes to effects like that, I mean, we've talked about practical effects versus CGI, but I can't speak from experience, having never seen the 20s version of King Kong, but I imagine there's something that almost would make me want to watch that more than, let's say, a movie from the late 90s, early 2000s when CGI was kind of in its infancy that just does not hold up anymore. Yeah. Like, I would much rather watch old school movies with practical effects, and I'd probably enjoy those effects more than now what in retrospect will be poor CGI.
Yeah.
So, yeah.
Absolutely. I think of like The Exorcist or something like that.
Yeah, well, totally.
Totally holds up over time. Like the practical effects hold up way better. Maybe The Fly is another good example.
Yeah,
of that.
that's right.
But just things where like you can see a huge black outline around the individual that is placed in a background that they're not supposed to be in, that does not hold well over time.
True. Very true.
Okay.
Yeah.
Anything else to add?
We also had mentioned Mahershala Ali being cast as Blade, which is awesome. I think that is a phenomenal casting decision. Apparently, I'm that's not unanimous. There were some people who are like, "Oh, what are you doing casting him as Blade?" But I think he's gonna do awesome.
Well,
I'm really excited.
I saw that there was a comment from Wesley Snipes.
Yeah.
And Wesley Snipes came out and said he was in favor of Ollie playing Blade.
Absolutely.
Really?
Yeah, he was saying it was cool, and he thought the fans should get over it because he thinks he'll do a great job. I mean, he's not going to be Blade anymore.
Right.
He's barely out of jail.
Did he pay his taxes yet?
Probably not. Speaking of taxes, that's what we're going to talk about tonight.
Ooh,
I want to see where this
look at that
There it
transition.
is, transition. That's
Nice
some
segue.
Yep, that's some quality there.
Stuffing our game up around here.
No more pop culture.
Yeah, I got some trailers. I
What'd you see?
caught my eye while I was on the YouTube rabbit hole and just clicking on videos.
Yep.
Sound like
Been
me.
there.
During your free time, right? Not on your break.
Free time.
Not on duty,
All
Craig.
free time.
Not on duty.
But, Rambo: Last Blood,
Okay.
Oh, yeah.
Mulan.
Yes.
Looks
Oh.
really good. Yeah.
My fiance's.
I
excited
honestly
for that.
did not.
Nice.
I thought that was an action movie until they came to the closing and said it was a Disney movie right at the
Yeah,
very
the
end.
live action. Yeah,
Yeah.
it's pretty good.
It does.
Gemini Man with Will Smith.
I haven't seen that one.
Oh, yeah. Okay, I'll have to check that out.
Angel Has Fallen, the third installment to Olympus Has Fallen and London Has Fallen. with
Gotcha.
Gerard Butler.
Yep, that's right.
Mm-hmm.
And Midway,
Oh, yeah, that looks pretty cool,
the World
too.
War II.
Yeah.
Yeah.
America's versus Japanese.
Jeez, how many trailers you watch?
It was like 10 or 12. These were the 6. And then 21 Bridges.
Yes.
Oh, okay. Yeah.
Chadwick Boseman. Wakanda forever.
Yeah, Wakanda.
Yes.
The
I'm
Russo
pumped for
brothers,
those.
right?
Yep.
It's gonna be good.
That looks really good. Yeah.
Okay. Well, let's get into it.
Let's do it.
Hell or High Water, directed by David Mackenzie, written none other by Taylor Sheridan. Like I said, it's my guy. Huge Taylor Sheridan fan. When I gave you guys this movie as homework, how many of you have seen it before we covered it?
One time, says Nate.
Yep. One.
Okay, Joe?
I had not seen it at all.
Okay. So let's do this first. Let's give Joe
Yep.
to give us a brief synopsis. What is this movie about?
Yeah, so essentially it is about two brothers who begin to rob a series of small town banks in an effort to prevent the bank from essentially taking back the land and the house from the brothers. So by doing this, they're actually robbing the same banks to which he owes money, and they're going to pay these banks back essentially with their own money. Yeah. They hatch this plan, though. Not only are the banks small, but they're also not robbing the actual large deposits. They're only taking the money from the tills, so it'll be harder to track in terms of the marked bills and things like that. They aren't going to have to worry about it so much. And there's also a very interesting, I guess you can call it a culture clash throughout this movie as well on multiple levels, but specifically from a bank perspective is that the security in these small banks is also not...
Lacking.
Yes, it's lacking, very much so. So these brothers begin to rob these series of small banks. The Texas Ranger, I believe it's Texas Ranger, correct me if I'm wrong, but Jeff Bridges plays kind of the lead Texas Ranger who takes this case, and he's 3 weeks away from retirement. And this is kind of his last hurrah. He's going after these brothers that are robbing the banks. And there's a very significant tone shift that happens in this movie, and I'm sure we'll get to this, but the conclusion, I really, really enjoyed this movie. I was absolutely blown away by it. So it's very, very compelling. They bring up, I think, a lot of very culturally relevant issues, I would say, with it as well. They tackle some of those things head on, so we might be bringing up some stuff this episode, too, that I guess you could say is controversial in a way, but we'll be touching on some of those themes and topics too. So,
Okay.
yeah.
All right. That's a good synopsis. Of course, we are going to touch on these topics because Aliens and Cowboys just deep dives, Nate.
Yeah, we go deep. And we don't apologize.
Okay. So what's interesting about this movie is I don't want to say this is considered his best movie. I think his best movie is considered Sicario.
Okay.
For writing. Keep in mind, he has not directed everything. He's written Sicario. He wrote Hell or High Water. He wrote and directed Wind River. He wrote Sicario 2, and he directs Yellowstone, which is that series on Paramount Network. Okay, starring Kevin Costner. This movie, though, nominated for 4 Oscars. Okay, Best Picture, Best Screenplay, Best Supporting Actor with Jeff Bridges, and Best Film Editing. Okay, it was kind of a down year, but this is a movie that came out of nowhere. Had a budget of $12 million, only made $38 million. This was not his first movie. His first movie was Sicario that he wrote, which
Wow.
was obviously, I think it might be one of my top 5 favorite movies, and I can't wait to cover that one. That's why we're doing it last. But then he's able to basically go from Sicario to Hell or High Water, and then Wind River is what his kind of final Western trilogy is. Okay? So just initial thoughts. Let's start with you, Nelly. When you watched this film, what thoughts did you have? What did you think about this movie?
Well, it was really good, the plot and the story. I really enjoyed that cowboy western rural type setting, and just I like at the beginning how it just got straight to the point. The first bank, and then just got right to it.
Yeah.
And just the whole movie was good.
Okay. Nate?
The fact that you just told me, what'd you say, is $12 million was the entire budget?
Yep.
That's incredible when you think about Ben Foster, Chris Pine, Jeff Bridges.
Yep.
I mean, that salary alone has got to be a huge portion of that $12 million.
Yeah.
But I think they did an awesome job given the budget that they had.
Yeah. I agree. I think the acting, I mean, obviously the big name actors, right? But Jeff Bridges, this is kind of almost like a comeback for him a little bit here. One of his better films he's had in a while. How about Gil Birmingham? Gil Birmingham plays the second sheriff.
Yeah.
Like the second ranger.
Oh, yeah.
He shows up in a couple movies that we'll see. So he'll be in Wind River. Okay. Not many of these guys are going to be in Sicario, but some of these guys are going to show up in Wind River, and then a lot of them appear in Yellowstone. But Gil Birmingham, I thought was great. Had a great chemistry with Jeff Bridges.
Absolutely.
Yeah, it was very good.
What I wanted to say too is I was talking to you guys earlier. When I first saw this, I thought Chris Pine was the best part of the movie. Rewatching this, it's clear to me that Ben Foster is the best part of this movie.
Are we all in agreement that Ben Foster is the best part of this movie? The best actor?
No, I disagree. I'm on Chris Pine's side of things here.
Okay.
Yeah.
I'm not anymore.
All right.
I was.
All right.
I was. But I have to go pro Ben Foster here. He's throwing 100 miles an hour in this movie.
Oh, yeah.
And it's funny because I was telling you, I saw 3 Ben Foster movies recently.
Yeah, that's right.
I saw this. I saw 310 to Yuma, which really not as good as I remembered it.
It's been a while since I've seen that.
I swear he's wearing eyeliner in the West, and he's got like this silver jacket on that they do a close-up on. It looks like a Michael Jackson jacket. It just doesn't look good.
Do you have one hand that's in the glove?
No, 2 hands in a glove. And then Mechanic with Jason Statham. That's a good action flick.
Yeah.
But kind of went on like a little Ben Foster kick there for a brief period of time.
There you go.
Underrated actor. So, go ahead, Joe. What are your thoughts?
Yeah, so from the outset, what I really enjoyed about this is that I went into it completely blind, which is kind of tough to do now, just with how much movies are advertised, how much you hear people talking about them. So all I really knew was the Netflix description before I hit play. Like whatever their brief little synopsis is, that's what I had to go on before I hit play. So everything that followed was completely new to me in every possible way, which I really, really enjoyed. Definitely some shocking moments that kind of catch you off guard, but I really thought the dialogue was great. The kind of camaraderie between the brothers, between Ben Foster and Chris Pine, but also between Jeff Bridges' characters and the other Texas Ranger as well. I thought the dynamic and kind of contrasting those two groups against each other was very, very interesting. So I really thought that was great. Overall, by the end of it anyway, pretty depressing, I thought. Obviously, for obvious reasons that we'll get to. But I really do like the modern Western approach that they have to it. This feels like a timeless tale, right? They could have, I think, taken this story, set it 150 years in the past, like a classic Western, and the plot would have fit. You know, it's kind of a classic story in terms of that, too. So I enjoyed that aspect of it as well. I'm a big fan of Westerns, as we've talked about. I think we all are to a certain extent. And modern Westerns like this that I think really succeed at what they're trying to do, hats off to it, for sure. Really enjoyed it.
Yeah, no, that's a good point. And obviously, like I said, well, I've been trying to think, because there's so many deep themes in this particular movie. Not just in this movie, but all of Taylor Sheridan's work. He does get some criticism, which I want to get to in a little bit. But obviously, he broaches some subjects that in this political climate are very prevalent and very in your face. And I'm just trying to figure out why I'm looking down our category list here, where we're going to put it in. So I don't want to debate it right now, but we're going to get into it tonight a little bit. So let's move forward into what our next category would be. Let's see here. Sorry, 1 second. Let's do any casting changes. Is there anybody that you would have cast in this movie that isn't in the movie, or differently, maybe not Chris Pine, not Ben Foster?
I got one.
Go ahead.
I think Chris Pine, first of all, does a phenomenal job. He's almost unrecognizable in this because this is probably the first movie I've seen him in since Star Trek. So seeing him as clean-shaven, clear-cut, goody two-shoes Captain Kirk, and then going to this role was really kind of jarring, and I loved that. So not trying to disparage Chris Pine's performance, but what about Scott Conn starring opposite Ben Foster? Those guys look like brothers.
If you don't know Scott Conn is James Caan's son.
Yep.
He's also in the Gone in 60 Seconds movie. He's
Hawaii
Tumbler.
5-0.
He's in Hawaii 5-0.
Yep.
He's also one of the brothers in the Oceans series. He plays Casey Affleck's brother in that movie. So he's been in a couple different things. He's in Varsity Blues. What's his name in Varsity Blues? Name? You remember what it is?
I don't.
Ready to Rumble?
Yes, he's in Ready to Rumble.
Oh, that's a good movie.
yes. Yeah, so he's got a couple different things.
I can see that.
Yeah, I can too. I don't know if he can. Well,
I think what wouldn't necessarily work.
Can he play such a passive character?
That's exactly it.
Yes.
Ben Foster and Scott Conn's characters are almost interchangeable. Like, I think Scott Conn would make a good, like, the brother that Ben Foster played.
Yep.
That would be good. I'd love to see them play brothers, but I think they both play the same type of character to a certain extent. So, yeah. It'd be a very different dynamic because Chris Pine does a great job of kind of that silent, seething rage, I would say, where he's not over the top and he very clearly disagrees with a lot of his brother's decisions as well.
I think he just understands the hierarchy of like where his decisions are being made.
Yeah.
Like it's not so much on an emotional level. He's got a job to do, which is like up here, and this is just a means to get to the ends there. Mm-hmm. And he can't just have those split-second decisions like his brother does.
Right.
okay.
There's a very good quote, if I can jump ahead.
Yeah, go ahead.
About they're in the casino, and Chris Pine goes, "How have you managed to stay out of prison this long?" And he goes, it's just something along the lines of like, it's been a struggle.
Yeah.
It's been really hard.
It wasn't easy. Yeah, that's right.
But that's right after he tries to pick a fight with somebody too.
Well, yeah, we'll get to that. I think that's one of your quotes,
All right,
isn't
all right.
it? We'll get to that poker scene. I got one for you. Maybe not Chris Pine. What about Brad Pitt? Now, I don't think they could afford Brad Pitt.
No
But
way.
I'm saying if we could say this movie didn't have a budget and we could put Brad Pitt in the place of Chris Pine to play more of that rugged brother, could he pull that off? I mean, he could, do you think that would be better?
I think he could. I think he'd put it off if he could manage the pay cut to do it.
Assuming that, let's just say they still give him $20 million.
I'm not saying he doesn't have the talent to play a passive person. I mean, that's kind of silly to my.
Okay. The only other person I could think of, and I just would put him in any movies, of course, Walton Goggins. But
he was on my list. I want to create a separate category at some point for you, Garrett, which is, will Walton Goggins, or rather, should Walton Goggins be in this movie? And the answer is
yes.
Yes,
We'll
across
say-
the board, probably.
We should just title it "Will It Goggins."
Yes. Goggins should be in this movie. And here's the thing: I would love for Walton Goggins to be in one of these movies because I think the themes that they go through were phenomenal.
Yes, he'd be perfect in these movies.
I was
he
thinking
would.
about this too. The other guy, since we're fans of him too, I think Timothy Oliphant, almost in like a Raylan Givens shadow, would play a Chris Pine pretty well.
Oh, interesting. Yeah. Okay.
I mean, obviously not Raylan Givens, but basically channeling Raylan Givens into his character, Toby Howard. I think that would be pretty interesting. How about Jeff Bridges? Anybody want to get rid of Jeff Bridges?
I thought I did great.
So did I.
Yeah,
I
I
really enjoyed that.
I had a hard
old
time thinking
school,
of.
Yeah.
almost retired individual.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. What about Gil Birmingham? Anybody want to replace him? I thought he did great.
Yeah, he did good too.
Those two characters
Those two paired up,
especially,
they were funny together.
They were.
So,
that would be hard
Bagging
to.
on each other.
Yeah.
Yeah, and there's no like emotional reaction when those insults are being thrown both ways, right?
Well,
they just understand like
yes
they
and
throw
no.
it back and forth.
They do, but I will say that there is clearly a touch of racism that Bridges has. And I feel
Absolutely.
like,
More than a touch.
and I feel
Yes.
like Alberto is Gil Birmingham's character's name, definitely sees it because let's have this conversation for these two. This particular relationship, because obviously Jeff Bridges is how many weeks you say away from
I
retirement?
believe he says he's 3 weeks away
3
from
weeks away.
retirement, I believe.
So he's
Yeah.
leaving. He also represents an older generation of a person that doesn't want to leave, that there's nothing for him to go to, nothing that he's leaving behind. When we talk about leaving a legacy, what legacy is he leaving? The guy that's kind of clearly coming up that's also not a white male who's going to take his spot. Like, there's something going on here. And the reason why I say that is there's a conversation they have in the hotel room.
Yeah.
And he's talking about soccer. And they're talking about playing a sport. But one of the things he says, and again, hopefully not too inappropriate, he starts talking about religion. And he's saying, aren't you supposed to burn sage and dance around the bed burning things? And Alberto looks at him and goes, I'm Catholic.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Like I'm not, he might be a Native American, but he's not, he's assimilated. He's just like everybody else in
He's a
town.
half-breed.
Yeah. So I just think it's one of those things where it's such an interesting relationship because even you see Alberto turn away from him, trying to go to sleep.
Yeah.
And
He's just
clearly
trying to
he's
ignore
just
him.
like trying to ignore him because like he wants this guy's job. He wants this old white guy out of there.
Yeah, he
That's
was
clearly
over it.
cranky. Yeah.
Yeah, you can tell. You definitely get the sense that Alberto's trying to just put up with it.
Yes.
Because he knows that Jeff Bridges' character is going to retire and he won't have to put up with this anymore. But that being said, while I think it does bother him, you can clearly see that some of his comments, I think, bother Alberto. There's also still a camaraderie
Yes.
there as well. So it's very interesting dynamic that
Yeah.
those two
It
have.
is.
Yeah.
It is. I mean, it's a give and take.
Yeah.
I think there's a certain amount of respect that's given to him too when they start to say, okay, let's walk through the paces. Why did they do this? And Alberto starts to dismiss some of these items and he goes, no, go get back to the facts. Jeff Bridges' character says, okay, let's get back to the facts on this. And he's like, you're disregarding a lot of things. Let's get to the bigger picture here. I think, why did they do it? How did they do it?
Yeah.
And he's trying to kind of teach him along the way too.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
So there's a certain amount of like, this is my mentor, or I am your mentor, and I'm trying to teach you what I know.
Yeah.
Yeah, and you get the feeling too, who knows what within this kind of self-contained universe, what crimes he's said to solve, but you kind of get the impression that something like this is fairly unprecedented. At least I got that impression, that the series of bank robberies, and by the end of it, skipping ahead, the murders that take place as well, once the actual bullets start to fly, that it's probably a pretty abnormal situation for them to be dealing with, possibly.
Sure.
So,
I'm glad you bring that up because it is abnormal. Everybody carries a gun in this movie.
yeah.
Everybody.
Literally everybody. Yes.
They all carry a gun. If you remember when they go to rob the last bank, there's a vigilante squad that goes with them too.
Yeah.
And it's
Chase
kind of
down the brothers.
interesting because I was thinking about when they're chasing them, and Ben Foster pulls over and pulls out the whatever he's got.
Looks like an M4
Some
or something.
automatic.
Yeah, some automatic rifle, and just starts unloading on him. At that point, he demasculates those people following him because they're like, they can't control that. They have no idea what they're getting into then.
No,
and
they
he
don't.
makes them all turn around and go back. But it's these macho guys. They stop the sheriff and they say, well, "I hope you find him before I do. I'll have him dressed on the hood of my car."
Yeah.
Like all this this masculinity.
Yeah.
It's
And
Texas.
it's
Yep.
yeah, exactly. It's a really fascinating look. But like I said, everybody owns a gun. Everybody has a gun. The old man at the very first bank robbery just puts the gun up there, walks out, just starts shooting.
Yeah.
You know?
Yeah.
It's just it's that kind of makes it scary because you're gonna walk into a bank and not know who has a gun.
Yeah.
So they're pretty ballsy to do that in Texas.
Yeah,
Yeah.
absolutely.
Well, yeah, and I think that's interesting. I hope I'm not skipping ahead too much here as well, but when Chris Pine tells Ben Foster, like, hey, this bank, the last bank where everything goes completely down the drain for their plan, where Chris Pine is smart enough to know, like, this is the wrong time of day. It's too big a bank. This is Texas. Like, this is not what we should be doing
He
right
even
now.
said going into the town, there's too much traffic.
Yeah, there's too much traffic. Yeah, he knows
too
the
impulsive.
problems
Yes.
that are going to happen. Yeah.
Yes.
So,
Yeah, I mean,
but he's desperate.
Of course, he wants the
Big
money.
part of it.
And even Ben Foster's character goes, he makes a comment about those GD conceal and carry laws.
Yeah, that's
nowadays.
right.
Yeah.
And he makes a joke about it, but they were just shot at.
yeah.
And then when they walk into the bank, they see all the crowd, and they're like, "Oh
Yeah.
God,
Yeah,
we're already in it."
What did we do? Yeah, exactly.
Let me ask you this because this is a criticism he has. So one character, really, there's an absence of female characters in this movie. There's
Yeah.
not.
Yeah, that's
First
true.
off, there's not really strong female characters. The only arguably strong female character is the waitress. Okay.
Mm-hmm.
From the diner, who basically tells Jeff Bridges, until you get a warrant, that money is my tip, and you can't have it. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
And kind of stands her ground there a little bit. Other than that, not a lot of strong female presence. I think it's Marin Ireland is her name. She plays Chris Pine's wife or ex-wife.
Yeah.
Okay.
She is in Homeland. She's in Sneaky Pete. She's a good actress. I really like her in Sneaky Pete. I wish that she would have had a bigger role because I see the way she puts up with Giovanna Ribisi being a con man and is able to go back and forth. I feel like she would have been a perfect character to go back and forth with Ben Foster and Chris Pine in this role. I think that she could do it. I wish that they would have explored her more because ultimately Chris Pine's doing this for his family, especially his sons, right? And
not so much his wife.
Right, exactly. Because what is it Ben Foster says when he talks about the way to pick them? He goes, "You do pick them angry," you know.
Yes,
and,
yeah.
But essentially, like I would like to see that because she has to know what he's doing. He has a conversation with his son that says you're going to hear things like they know that he's up to no good. Like they're burying cars on the
property.
on the property.
Yeah.
Right. I wish that she would have a bigger role because I think it would have been interesting to see what she would do if she would have been complicit, or if she would have tried to talk him out of it. So, speaking of why he's doing this, so let's have a couple of these debates. So he's obviously the story of this is they are robbing banks, okay, because they're trying to pay off a loan, a minimal loan that Midlands Texas Bank gave to their mother, so that she would not lose her farm. It was a $25,000 loan, almost like a home equity line of credit, probably. And she passed away, and she did not pay off this debt. So they are going to basically confiscate this farm, at which they have found oil on.
That's the kicker.
Okay? So, obviously this bank, this entire movie deals with, again, this basically white masculinity in Eastern Texas that they're in, or is it Western Texas? West Texas. Yeah. That these are people in small towns that feel left behind. Okay, they're one of the most important quotes that we'll get to is about obviously bank bailouts. This is a group of people that would have felt like large banks in Northeast big cities getting bailouts. Small town people are not. Okay, so they're obviously angry. They're upset. They feel like they have been that they had predators, in the form of banks taking advantage of people. There's a guy. Great quote. I'm going to step on one of my quotes. I have a couple quotes. So my first quote was Jeff Bridges asking the guy when Ben Foster runs across to rob the bank by himself while Chris Pine's having dinner.
Right.
He says, "You've been here for a while?" And he says, "Long enough to watch that bank get robbed. It's been robbing me for 30 years." And that's their mentality, right? Nobody's really snitching on these guys.
No, I found that the most interesting part probably of the entire movie is that they, at least from Chris Pine's perspective, once again, Ben Foster is a loose cannon throughout this, but from Chris Pine's perspective, his character's perspective, he would probably agree with a lot of the other people that you see the sheriffs or the Texas Rangers talking to, and vice versa. Like, they probably agree about a lot. It's just Chris Pine's going to an extreme, but they all feel the same way probably about the banks.
Yeah, and it's not that I don't even think Jeff Bridges disagrees.
No, I don't think he does necessarily.
No,
Yeah.
He's very impartial about it, I think.
Kind of is, yeah.
Yeah. Anyways, let's just ask this question. I thought about this. If they don't find oil on the property, are they robbing banks? Is he trying to fight to keep clearly a desolate piece of property that's clearly not farming, ranching? They're not really probably making money off this property. Is it worth doing what he's doing to just take the property and give it to his sons if they did not find the oil on it?
I don't think so.
Yeah, agreed.
I disagree too.
Okay.
But, okay, counterpoint.
Yeah.
Is the bank trying to confiscate it for the very same reason that they know that there's oil on it?
Well, probably.
Or are they just
They
taking
mentioned
advantage of it?
Yeah,
They
probably.
mentioned that they knew there was oil on it.
Sure, but they're going to try to take it anyways,
Oh,
right?
yeah.
I
Just
mean,
a bonus for
just a
them.
bonus. They can sell it for more than $25,000 that it's probably on loan for.
That's a problem because when you do something like that, you need to have like a due diligence period to understand what the value of that land, like you do a value assessment of that land is.
Sure.
And you could be shady about it and you'd be like, oh, I didn't find anything as the bank lender, knowing, and you're going to lend it out at X number of dollars, which is like, say, $10,000, knowing that it's $10 million worth of value.
Sure.
And lend out a loan that you know that a person may or may not be able to.
We can assume she's probably elderly.
Right.
We can assume that
Yeah.
she had health complications, as there was an IV and like
it's true.
a
Hospital
hospital
bed.
bed
Yeah.
in her residence. Also, we're on the heels of, obviously this was a 2016 release. I think he started writing this, I want to say, in 2011.
Okay.
So we're on the heels of
2008 is
the financial
bottom of the
crisis.
bottom, kinda.
Right. And so talking about predatory lending, stuff like that, it's not out of the realm of
Ninja
possibility
loans.
that this would have happened to this lady, right? And, Chris Pine, I guess, I don't know. Let me ask you this. What is this movie trying to say about legacy?
He's trying to do right by his family.
Okay.
Businesses are trying to do right by themselves and make a profit, and it's a gray area, I guess. They're both trying to do right by themselves, and it conflicts.
Just like any parent, he's just trying to leave something for his kids. He even says it. We've grown up poor, my dad, my grandpa. He just wants to leave something for his kids.
Yeah.
That poverty's generational.
Yep.
Right?
Like a disease or something. He says it first.
Yep. Yeah.
So, it is in this movie as a theme. I read about it more in an interview Taylor Sheridan did, because I think he grew up in Texas. He tried to go be an actor in L.A. He ended up going, I think, to one of the Dakotas to work on a ranch to be part of a Native American reservation. One of the things he talks about is going from these small towns and these areas are things about, the idea of white privilege. And he, again, in this interview would argue white privilege doesn't, like, these guys don't feel like they have white privilege. Just like Chris Pine's character would not feel he has white privilege in this movie. Right? Now, Gil Birmingham, Alberto might think Jeff Bridges does.
Right.
And Jeff Bridges might not say he does, but that's kind of that different dichotomy here. Right? And I don't know. It's kind of an interesting thing, because I also think back about white privilege or male privilege and think, would that waitress rob a bank? Is she so concerned about putting food on the table for her children? Would she go to the step that these guys are to rob that bank? I don't know. I mean, they're clearly not in any position different than a lot of other people in town.
Right.
And not a lot of other people are robbing banks.
Mm-hmm.
Obviously Ben Foster has probably helped perpetuating this, because he is a criminal that just got out of the judicial system, right? He just got released from jail.
Yeah, exactly right. I mean, he has to be perpetuating this, and the fact they even quote that actually, where they're talking, and he's like, "Why are you doing this?" He says, "Because you asked me to, little brother."
Yeah.
So like, you can tell that Ben Foster's character probably had no hesitation. Chris Pine was like, "Hey, here's my plan. I know it's crazy," and Ben Foster's like, "Yeah, when do we start?" Like, I imagine that's how that conversation went. He's not trying to talk him out of it.
And they were probably drunk when they had it.
Probably, yeah.
Yeah, but not only did he previously want to do that, right? And that's what he was put in jail for. But he also wants to do it now because he has a cause to promote his own family legacy, to some degree. And he's doing it for the right reasons. And he takes that to the nth degree by the end of this movie, too.
Okay. What's your favorite scene?
My favorite scene was the end, when he's paying off.
Oh, paying off the bank loan.
Yep.
Okay.
With their own money.
Oh,
And
yeah.
just the look on the banker's face, priceless.
That was.
I like when he turns around and says, "Do you do trusts?"
Yeah,
Yep.
do you do trust? That was so good. I like how, though, he doesn't let the guy just assure him that he's going to fax the documents. He's
Right.
like,
He
no,
wants to
I'm
be
going to
there.
watch you
Yep.
do
I
this.
got all the time in the world.
Yep,
Yeah.
exactly.
Banker's like, all right.
Guess I better go do this then. Yeah,
Yeah.
that was a really good scene.
I like that because you're holding somebody accountable for it.
Yeah,
Yeah.
absolutely.
I mean, they don't trust banks. The whole premise of this movie is the bank is the predator. You can make the argument the bank is the antagonist of this movie. You know? I don't know. Interesting. Nate, favorite scene?
It's got to be something with Ben Foster in it.
Okay.
I would probably say the casino with Ben Foster when he's having an eye-to-eye with the Comanche
Yep.
on the other side of the table.
Yep.
I think they're playing poker.
They are.
There, yeah.
And I forget what he says. He's like, don't meet me.
No,
Don't meet me
he
in the
says-
middle here.
He says, "Don't chase me, Chief."
Don't chase me, Chief. Yes.
Which catches
Yeah.
the guy's attention then, because he's arguably degrading him, right?
Right?
It's a racial slur to him.
Yep. And he's playing the poker game, right?
Yeah.
And he doesn't know which way he's going to read him. And he calls him, and he just lays down the chips like, good call.
Yeah.
Good
And
call,
then
man.
tries to walk away.
Then he tries to walk away. He pulls his chips, he calls them all out, and then they meet face to face, and he gets the explanation on what a Comanche is,
Yep.
as far as a Comanche is an enemy to all other people.
Yep.
And Ben Foster gives a fantastic line like, "Do you know what that makes me? A Comanche."
And he just stares at him. He doesn't blink. He doesn't break eye contact. Stares at death.
Exactly.
That death stare.
And then there's just like, "You just took my money. We're cool.
Yep.
You go on your way. I'll go on mine."
Yep. Walks away. Yeah.
I really enjoy that
That's a
because
good one.
they're on equal playing field at that point.
JoJo?
Yeah, so my favorite scene, I felt kind of bad that this was my favorite scene, but it caught me so off guard, and I like how completely unconcerned Ben Foster is throughout the duration of this entire scene. But they pull into the gas station, and in a green, I don't know if it's a Camaro or what, but these punks pull up in this green Camaro, let's say. Chris Pine has gone into the gas station, and Ben Foster is looking like he has not a care in the world, relaxing in the driver's seat. And he just kind of stares at these punks in this car who are blasting metal music. And you can tell Ben Foster does not approve of this. And so these kids, though, they look like they're probably supposed to be younger in age than like Chris Pine and Ben Foster are. But anyway, they try to pick a fight with him. And then they show a gun and hold a gun outside the window, like still trying to kind of mess with Ben Foster, like, you want to start with something? And Chris Pine, out of nowhere, just smokes this guy, like bashes his head into the car door and just completely wrecks him. And then he goes around to the other side, to the passenger seat, where this other dude's friend had just been kind of watching everything unfold, and he starts like, "Oh no, don't do that."
He had it coming.
He had it coming. Yeah. Oh man, like
Just gives up.
just the fact that Chris Pine comes out of nowhere and lights that dude up. That wow.
And then Ben Foster's character, he just kind of laughs like,
Yeah.
"You got what was coming to you."
Yeah, well, there's the
Even though
quote,
he
too,
instigated
that-
this.
You
Like,
remember the
the-
gun.
Oh yeah, you remember
Yeah,
the gun this time.
You remember the gun this time, and then like
Picks it up and throws it.
told you it'd feel like there were 10 of me or whatever. Because Ben Foster is verbally sparring with these guys a little bit to kind of.
I'm going to piggyback off yours.
Sure,
Not-
yeah.
Not my favorite scene, but my favorite quote.
Okay.
When he goes, "This is Mr. Pibb. I asked for Dr. Pepper." And Chris Pine goes, "So?" And he goes, "Only assholes drink Mr. Pibb." And it's just the best part at the end of that, because it's right as we're driving away from that.
Yeah,
gas
it's as they're
station.
driving away.
He's so casual and cool about it
Yeah.
too. He's just like, that's not what I asked for.
That's another. I'm glad you guys brought that up, because another thing that this movie does such a good job of is these very high intensity situations that then are immediately softened
Yes.
by the exchange and dialogue between either the brothers or between Jeff Bridges.
Yeah.
I mean, like, yeah. So such a great job with the dialogue, I think,
Yeah.
throughout this movie.
My favorite scene is the first bank robbery.
Okay. Yeah.
So, because I mean that sets the tone for this entire movie, and it kind of also tells you which brother plays which role here. And Ben Foster immediately jumps onto the bank teller's position and puts the gun in her face. He's charming about it, though, right? Because he's the comedic one of the two,
Right.
Whereas Chris Pine maybe a little more hesitant, sitting back. There's an old guy in there that basically is trying to bring in a box of quarters, and they're having a good time. I love that they're taking time and she's unwrapping them, because nobody else is in the bank.
Mm-hmm.
This is such a small town, small bank, but there's nobody waiting but this guy, and he's armed, and they don't even think about it. And Ben Foster brings that to his attention. Get his gun, puts it right on the Chris Pine just basically puts it in front of him.
Within arm's
Puts it in
reach,
front of him.
right?
Yes, I know.
Yes, doesn't even take it.
Don't grab that.
But they basically leave, and they just, like you said, tense situation. The levity of them driving away, joking, laughing. Ben Foster's yelling, speeding, slowing down,
Yeah.
through the back alleyways.
Not speeding.
I'm not speeding.
Not speeding. Yeah.
Yeah.
He keeps. Yeah.
I think that was
so
the
good.
second bank.
That's
That was the
first-
second bank.
It was the
It's-
second.
It was the
first
second
one was
bank.
the lady.
Oh,
You're right,
sorry.
you're
Oh,
right.
I'm sorry. You're correct. The second bank robbery was my favorite. It sets the tone for that.
Yeah.
That first one. Yeah, it kind of
It was
pistol
good.
whipped that guy.
Yeah, well, it still does, though, to reinforce your point. It shows the differences
Yeah.
between them, and I think Chris Pine's even telling Ben Foster, like, you didn't have to do that. Like, you didn't have to pistol whip him, kind of deal. And Chris Pine's very respectful, like, he tries to be anyway. He's like, man, we're just here to take the bank's money. Like, we're not here to hurt you.
Yep.
Just give us the money, kind of thing. So,
Yeah.
no, both of those scenes are really important in establishing their characters.
And I had a quote off from that first scene where she's like, "You haven't done anything wrong except be stupid." And then when he sits her down and he looks at her, "You're stupid."
You're stupid. Yeah, that's right.
So, obviously, this
good.
movie is extremely quotable.
Very quotable.
I went
Yeah.
through my 3 quotes. What do you guys have for quotes?
Yeah. You want me to
Yeah,
take this one here?
jump in.
Sure. So this is actually a quote by Taylor Sheridan. So you had pointed this out to me, Garrett. I did not realize that. There's a scene in this movie where the Texas Rangers are driving along the road, and there's a group of cowboys, and they're herding cattle, and you can see some smoke and fire in the distance. So Jeff Bridges basically asks this one particular cowboy, rancher, whatever you want to say, what's going on. So they're trying to escape this fire, and I think this is a great commentary on the state of things at this point in time as well. So this cowboy replies, "Ought to just let it turn me to ashes, put me out of my misery. 21st century, I'm racing a fire to the river with a herd of cattle, and I wonder why my kids won't do this for a living." And it's a very interesting, I think, quote that shows the differences in generations here as well.
Yeah.
And also possibly why certain elements of this way of life are falling by the wayside, because just like he says, his kids aren't going to want to be doing this, something that people 150 years ago were doing when these brush fires would start up, and they're trying to get their herd of cattle out of the way to the river. Like, it's just something, once again, 150 years back, that's the same exact situation that could have happened. So yeah. I really enjoyed that quote.
There's a second part to that quote. As they get through as they say, cut the fence, they get through. Gil Birmingham, or Alberto, is talking to Jeff Bridges, and they go, "Should we help them?" And Jeff Bridges kind of just stares and looks at him, and you see that as the cowboys are pushing the cattle out, and he goes, "Nope, they're on their own." You know, and it's kind of like that, you know, if you live in the West, you're on your own. Like, no one's coming for you, no one's helping you.
Yep.
This arguably old way of life that you won't let go of, that you're holding on to, you're on your own. And it was an interesting, you know, kind of ending to that little scene there.
Yeah.
But that is Taylor Sheridan, who is the rancher that gives that quote. So
pretty cool.
Go ahead, Nate.
Totally understand that. My one of my favorite scenes is in the casino with Ben Foster and Chris Pine's getting seduced by a lady of the night, and he comes in there unrelenting. He's like, you trying to hit on my brother? Because he got a huge stack, you know? And he just calls her out completely and goes, "No, get out of here. Shoo. Yep. You know, he just kind of shoos her off.
Yeah.
Because he's not so much naive to the world as much as his brother is, to where he's got the righteous values, to where his brother is like the means to an end. He knows how to get what needs to be done. Exactly, yeah.
Yeah. Okay.
And
I'm always looking after him. Like when they're with the lawyer, he's like, "What's in it for you?"
Yeah.
Because he thinks the lawyer is trying to scheme him out too.
Mm-hmm. There's a good yin and yang situation between the two brothers, to where one's very level-headed and kind of book smart, and the other is very street smart and knows the way of the world, and people are always trying to gain an advantage for themselves.
Yeah.
Oh yeah, my quote also in the casino when they're getting ready to check in the hotel, and Ben Foster to the lady up front. Let's see, I botched this. "I'm the worst kind, darling. In your last days in the nursing home, you'll think of me and giggle." And she just giggles back, and then just won her over. And then
isn't it in the next scene they like hook up? Like you assume they hook up in the next scene?
He was just right next to Chris Pine.
Yeah, he's just trying to ignore everything that's going on.
He's probably pissed. He's like, "I could have got some too. He came over here and blocked me."
Yeah.
He's over here next to me.
So I want one final quote that I found.
Sure.
And I remember this. And it kind of goes back to when I was talking about not a lot of women in this movie. But the ones that are in there are kind of strong. So there's a T-bone waitress.
Oh, that.
So Jeff Bridges
great.
and Gil Birmingham are sitting at this, little diner across from one of the banks they think is going to get robbed.
Yeah.
And they're basically ordering breakfast. And they're basically debating what they want. And she says, "It's not what do you want, it's what don't you want." And they're kind of taken aback by it. And she goes, "I've been working here 44 years. Ain't nobody ever ordered nothing but a T-bone steak and a baked potato. Except one time. This asshole from New York ordered trout. Back in 1987. We ain't got no goddamn trout. And you either want the corn of the cob or you don't want the green beans." And Jeff Bridges "I don't want the green beans." And Gil Birmingham goes, "Well, I don't want the green beans either." And they walk away, and Jeff Bridges turns to Gil Birmingham and goes, "Well, I don't think anybody's going to rob this place."
Doesn't Gilbert go like, "I like my medium," and he just, "You get it medium rare."
Yeah, he does. Yeah.
Like, that wasn't a question.
Yeah. I mean, just like I said, not a lot of not a lot of women, but there are strong women in this movie. So, okay. How about gift advice, or a gift or advice you'd give to somebody?
I really enjoy. It's probably not gift or advice, but the very end of this movie, where you get the insight to where both of them are interrogating one another between Chris Pine's character and Jeff Bridges' character.
Yeah.
Where he meets him up at his farm that technically Chris Pines doesn't own. It's owned by the trust. And he says, why'd you do it? How'd you do it? And they offered him, like, yeah, if you want some relief from doing that, I can offer that for you. And just insinuating that I could kill you. and Jeff Bridges goes, yeah, I could do the same to you, too. Where do you want to meet up?
Yeah.
Kind of thing. It's kind of this mutual respect they built for one another, too. And Chris Pine just plays such a character that's just like, kind of, I've completed what I needed to do, and if you kill me, there's that much less evidence to pursue at that point.
Yeah. Yeah, definitely. How about you, Nelly?
Well, I got two.
Sure.
One to Alberto at the end. Don't peek snipers.
Yeah.
Because
Yeah.
it doesn't end well.
Nice.
Spoiler alert.
Well,
And then the other one, Toby, when he's driving at the end,
Okay.
he's got a busted headlight. It's like, not a smart idea. You've been shot and you just robbed a bank. You're kind of looking to get pulled over.
yeah,
I mean, kind of sketch, I think.
that's true.
But those are my two.
Sure.
You see some of those, like, super, like, oddball, like, county roads or whatever that they're driving on, too. There's no way that people get away with that sort of stuff. It's amazing that, like, I imagine there's so much area to cover, right? And it's grid lined or whatever by your farmland. I don't know where you, like,
Yeah, I don't believe for a
The
second Chris Pine
roadblocks.
gets away with this. When he goes to that roadblock, he's not getting away.
Yeah.
I can't
had-
think so either.
Yeah, I totally agree. I have that I wanted to touch on later too.
Yeah, go
Kind
ahead.
of part of that. But no, for the other part we were talking about, the advice, I kind of alluded to it earlier, is when Chris Pine is trying to kind of talk Ben Foster out of going to rob that final bank.
Yep.
It's like, should have listened to your brother. I get that they're on their deadline, they're desperate at this point in the movie, but it is that final bank that things go completely wrong at. So if Ben Foster had cooled down a little bit and listened to Chris Pine, they might have been able to figure something else out that hadn't resolved in such bloodshed like it did. So that would be my advice. Tell Ben Foster to listen to his brother.
So not go from the diner to that other.
Yeah, well,
bank and-
whichever one is the final bank that they're
the
driving
final
to, the
bank,
final
okay.
bank.
In
Post, I
Where
believe.
yeah, exactly, it's the one in Post, and they were talking about how Chris Pine knows he needs the money, and Ben Foster is then convincing Chris Pine that yeah, you need this amount. If we go hit this bank, it'll be enough to put you where you need to be. But Chris Pine is pushing back, even knowing he needs the money, that it's everything about it's wrong. Like at where it's at in terms of the time of day in which they're trying to rob it, the size of the bank, how busy it will be, all of these factors. Because Chris Pine, you definitely get the sense that he's the planner and all this, just like you said earlier, Nate.
Yeah.
Whereas Ben Foster's kind of the enforcer type once they actually put the plan in motion. So that would be my advice, is to tell Ben Foster's character to listen to his younger brother and try to postpone that final bank robbery. 'Cause
Plan
that's
that out
where-
a little better.
Plan it out a little better. Because it's a knee-jerk decision that they kind
Yeah.
of decide to go do this.
Too
So.
impulsive.
Yeah, exactly. Exactly.
I agree. Don't rob the last bank.
Don't rob the last bank.
Just, you can't always. Sometimes you gotta let that last one go. It's always like that last job, that trope that everybody wants to get
Agreed.
that last score, and it's always the one that takes everybody down.
Yeah, it's true. It's always that last
Isn't
one.
that the point of all these movies? Is like there's a deadline to meet and you have to do it, and that's the like impulsive deal you have to. Okay, this is why we have to do it, because you only have so much time.
Yeah,
Yeah.
and that's what that's what that decision hinges on for sure. Is that they're out of time completely.
Hope your phone didn't crack.
Nope, that was hard impact there.
How about most cowboyish scene?
Yeah,
In a bank robbery movie,
Yeah.
I got
for me,
yeah.
Nate,
That is
claim
you.
to fame on this. It's got to be when he eats at the diner. He walks across the street and he's like, we need some more money. And on his own, he just goes robs the bank like impromptu. Like he has no plan or anything. He just goes in there like, give me all your cash registers. I don't want anything less than a 20 or more than a 20.
Comes out running, stuff in his
shirt.
shirt.
Yeah.
And then he just stuffs his little
everywhere.
his little cowboy shirt. Let's go.
Nelly, what do you got? Most cowboyish scene.
Well, I had two. One was the bank in post, ballsy but dumb.
Mm-hmm.
But the other part was when Tanner, he's driving away up the hill, rigs the truck, sets it on fire.
Oh yeah.
Gets out and lets it roll back into the cops and has it blow up so he can get away and get up into this little sniper's nest. And do damage.
Right.
Probably knowing that there's no way out.
Yeah, no way out from there.
Yeah.
I thought that was pretty clever.
That was cool.
That was. We'll probably put a quick pin in it, take a quick break, you guys, and we'll check back in here in just a couple. Hey, welcome back, everybody, from that intermission. Thanks for bearing with us there. We were discussing the most cowboyish scene as our categories that we were reviewing here. So, Nate, Nelly, you guys just reviewed yours. I figured I'd dive right into mine here. So, Nate, you actually brought this one up earlier, which was the scene at the very end between Jeff Bridges and Chris Pine. They're kind of a little standoff, if you will. It's a verbal standoff. It's not quite a literal standoff in terms of they have guns drawn. Although Chris Pine does have his liver action, and Jeff Bridges has something on him as well. But yeah, that whole interaction where they're kind of, I won't say taunting each other necessarily, but they're clearly drawing a line in the sand where Jeff Bridges has just killed Chris Pine's brother, and Chris Pine's brother had killed Alberto. So they each have a reason to hate each other, of course. And just like you said, Nate, Chris Pine at the very end mentions how he's like, hey, I've got a place in town. If you want to finish this conversation, we can make that arrangement. And
it's so weird that I don't get the feeling that they necessarily hate one another.
Yeah, okay,
It's
fair
kind
enough.
It's kind of like this is they're victims of circumstance to some degree. And Jeff Bridges' character puts that on Chris Pine because he says, well, you put this all in action.
Yeah, exactly.
And had you not, we wouldn't be in this situation.
So are you... Okay, let me ask you this. Do you think when they have that conversation at the end that they're willing to let bygones be bygones and get together? Or do you believe they're basically like, one of us is going to kill the other one? Just, it's going to happen. Where do you stand on this? Like, do you think that Chris Pine is basically inviting Jeff Bridges to come try to kill him so that they can put that to sleep? Or that they're going to, like, have a beer together?
I didn't get that either one completely. What I mean by that is I think they're just going to avoid each other. Like, I don't think Jeff Bridges is actually going to necessarily go to Chris Pine's place in town and have a conversation with him. I think that was them both posturing a little bit.
Ooh, I took it that when this movie ends, one of them is going to die. Not like there, but I feel like in the future.
Some point.
Because I feel like Jeff Bridges is that old style cowboy that's not going to let his man get away. And I feel like he's clearly, obviously been retired. He clearly is still going back to the office to read what he can about Ben Foster's character. And he knows that the other brother got away and got away with it. And like you said, he put this whole thing in motion. He blames him. I think that they're going to give one of them's going to give each other peace, as they said, right?
Yes, yeah, that's how they phrase it.
I think that they're both. I think that they're both to the point where Chris Pine has achieved his mission. His kids are clearly going to be taken care of, so he is probably at peace if he were to pass away or get killed. Jeff Bridges has nothing. I mean, you saw it. He has a dog, which everybody likes their dog,
right?
But other than that, he's got nothing. And I took it as, hey, one of us is like 12 o'clock noon showdown here. Anybody else take that, or do you guys take it as?
I like that too. I don't know that I was looking forward to the ending of that situation, the confrontation of those two going head to head.
How did you read it? Like, did you read it as me saying like one of them is going to try to kill the other one, or inviting them to do it, or are you reading it as in like Joe said, they're kind of at peace with what happened?
That's a hard take because I feel like Chris Pine is like, I did what I had to do by the best of my family, and that's my reasoning. And Jeff Bridges understands that. However, in the process of doing that, there were casualties.
Sure.
And there's cost to be paid in order to do that.
Okay.
And I think Chris Pine is all but willing to sacrifice what's needed to be to just put everything to rest, which I think at this point is almost untouchable.
Yeah.
The way he set things up.
I don't think he can
So-
prove it. Like I don't think they can hold him accountable. They can't prove he did it.
Right. Which is actually, we'll get to, I want to touch on that here in a little bit too. But
I think he's just saying, hey, if I kill you, then it absolutely 100%, 110% goes to bed.
Yeah, but if Jeff Bridges kills him too, Jeff Bridges also becomes an outlaw now.
yeah.
And Jeff Bridges again is that man of
He also has no authority at this point.
Correct.
He's
No,
retired.
he's retired.
correct.
Yeah, and I guess the reason why, to back up why I feel the way I do about it, I'll cite some evidence here.
Go ahead.
But it's the scene
Please
where
do.
where Jeff Bridges mentions that this is going to haunt both of us for the rest of our days, or something along those lines. And that little exchange of dialogue there, and then as they're kind of walking away, Jeff Bridges is getting ready to leave. It seemed to me in that moment that they both almost have a mutual understanding. I'm not saying Jeff Bridges agrees with what Chris Pine and his brother did, but it's more like, hey, I've explained to you that I know you did it. Don't know how I'd be able to ever pin this on you, but I know you were the one who set all this in motion. But what you have caused, you're going to have to live with that. And then it's kind of Jeff Bridges, I think, washing his hands of it and driving away. So that's why I think they won't really interact. There wouldn't literally be a scene where they're meeting up, unless, of course, it's a small town, so they'd probably just like see each other in the streets and stuff, I guess. But I that's how I took it. Like, they're both kind of putting it to rest right there.
Okay.
Like, moving on
I think
from
I'm
it.
with Garrett on this one. I feel like they both want to end it. Like Chris Pine feels like he doesn't want to keep looking over his shoulder.
Yeah.
And Jeff Bridges just wants to get revenge. You know,
Yeah.
he can get-
So here's the thing. Who wins this? Who kills who? Who survives? If they chose, if Jeff Bridges, I don't think Chris Pine's going to Jeff Bridges. I think Jeff Bridges would have to go to Chris Pine. So Jeff Bridges is going to go and try to take out Chris Pine. What happens? Who wins this?
Jeff Bridges.
I think he allows it to happen.
Chris Pine?
Right? I mean, there's an acknowledgement, like you said. He allows this thing to go through, even though he knows how it's all situated in the end,
Okay.
and what the cause and effect are.
You say assuming that confrontation happens, who wins? Essentially, is that what you're getting at, Garrett?
Yeah.
Yeah. Okay.
Who survives?
I'd say Jeff Bridges.
I do
Jeff
too.
Bridges, he's got way too much experience. He wouldn't hesitate. Chris Pine is still a good person, I would argue, at his core. And you see him lock up and freeze up at multiple points when violence ensues. Okay, the scene I cited earlier with the car and he beats the guy up. But in terms of a gunfight, which we can assume is the type of confrontation that would ensue in this example, Jeff Bridges, absolutely. I think Jeff Bridges would have
Jeff
that.
Bridges definitely has the motivation.
Yeah.
He's
totally
on the
does.
revenge tour now. He's looking for payback against something.
Yeah.
Right? Chris Pine is basically reserved to the fact that, again, his mission's accomplished. His kids are taken care of. He's probably not getting back together with his ex-wife.
Right.
Like,
Yeah, but this is a weird concept because Jeff Bridges doesn't have anything left to
but now he does have
do
something
at that
left to
point.
do.
He has one thing left to do, and that's finish the one case that he.
Unfinished business.
Yeah.
Yeah, but it gives him something to live for.
Okay.
It's my hobby. How can I
Needs
kill
a hobby.
Chris Pine?
Yeah.
You know? Okay.
Since he doesn't want to fish every day.
How about... yeah, it's true. What doesn't age well in this movie, besides a lot of it?
Besides a lot of it, yeah, I think obviously, like we've mentioned, there's a lot of racist dialogue in this as well.
Yeah.
Which will not be converted
Which,
very well in the
which we will
future.
not repeat on here, but be it jokes or just not delivered in a joking manner.
Yes.
There's a lot of it, especially with Jeff Bridges, actually. So his interaction with Alberto, while you get the sense that he's saying it to get a rise out of Alberto, he definitely crosses the line on multiple occasions, I would say.
There's an interesting, the Comanche scene.
Yeah,
Right?
well, that too.
So where he's
Yeah.
trying to antagonize the Native American and the person who's betting against him. Besides the strategy of poker and everything besides that, but he's sitting there trying to pluck and poke at him as much as he can as a strategy, and he used just derogatory terms and everything like to that degree. But and then he the best part of that is that he twisted at the very end to say, "I'm the same as you," sort of situation.
Right. But yeah. Sorry, Nate. Didn't mean to.
No, go ahead.
Cool. The other thing I was going to finally bring up is what I've been alluding to here. The fact that they don't think Chris Pine is capable of this. I don't really buy that. They work it out very well. The dialogue is very well written, where Jeff Bridges at the very end goes back into the office. He's retired at this point. Starts looking through Ben Foster's file. They're talking about other criminals, known associates of Ben Foster, and where they were at, because of course they know that there were two people carrying out all these robberies. And once again, it's a great piece of dialogue. I think it's a well-written scene where they explain why Chris Pine is not a suspect, but I personally had a very hard time believing that, because all of the facts, which this is what Jeff Bridges arrives at for his conclusion, would be something that I would think most detectives, Texas Rangers, county sheriffs, whatever you want to call it, would also be able to piece together. So I have a hard time believing that they're not going to get a warrant to search the property where you see a huge pile of dirt. Might want to check it out. Like, there's just a couple things there that I don't think add up, and I just wanted to bring that up. That's probably nitpicking, but I found it very strange that Jeff Bridges is the only person who thinks that the brother of the guy who was a known criminal and involved in these series of crimes, that they're giving him a free pass.
So, okay, fair enough. I think one thing that does not age well is when Ben Foster is shooting the assault rifle at all of the trucks. One of those guys would have had a rifle.
Yeah.
There's no way they don't have an AR-15 in
He
it.
only had 3 mags too.
Yeah,
Dumped them all, and they could
well,
just waited. And
Yeah.
But they don't know that. But I'm saying that somebody of all those SUVs, these guys being hunters, he's getting shot standing in the middle of the street like that.
Yeah.
But he walks from cover and he shoots. Reloads
No, but he
like 3
literally
times.
stands there though in the middle of the street though, and just is unloading. And I'm saying that with the trucks and these guys having rifles like they do as hunters, someone's taking him
for
out
sure.
on the
Yeah.
street right there.
I had that damage as one of mine.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That he's gonna get shot, or that he didn't have enough magazines.
No, that he could have been taken out.
Yeah.
Like, was it 8 guys? And
Irregardless
just
of the
behind cover
magazines.
and-
Well, but these are the same group of people that end up at the final battle, the final fight with Ben Foster, and Jeff Bridges uses the gun of one of the guys to snipe him. So what I'm saying is that rifle was in one of those trucks
Yeah.
at that time, probably. I also know, this tinge of like vigilantism, right? These guys show up throughout the movie after banks are robbed, and they're like, "Oh, if only I was here, or I would have, I'll go look for him." And the idea that 8 trucks are following this bank robbery thing is fascinating.
Yeah, no doubt.
Because that's not going to happen here. Like, that's not going to happen in a city.
Nope.
It just wouldn't. People go about their day. But these guys feel that pride. Not that it doesn't age well, but the idea that there's just this masculinity about, I'll kill him. Like,
Saddle up, let's go.
Yeah, I remember
it's
it's
the
an
posse.
ode to the
Yeah.
setting too,
Yeah,
right?
it is.
It's
It's
like,
a
hey,
Western.
how do you get behind that bluff? And he's like, oh, I'll take it 30 minutes behind here, and we'll find
Yeah.
that cliff.
that's right. He wants to get just basically 15 feet over, but he has to go 30 minutes out of his way to climb up.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah,
Yeah.
perfect. What else doesn't age well?
Well, I thought that again the bank and post where they walk in and just full of people, and even the security guard comes out, had the drop on them, and then the civilian had the pistol, and neither one could take them out. And they're in Texas. I mean, come on.
Yeah.
There's got to be more guns than that.
Of all the bank robberies, of all the states that I would perform a bank robbery, it would not be
Definitely
Texas.
not Texas.
Texas would not be my number one choice.
How about the depiction of banks in this movie, though? Is it a fair depiction? I mean, let's be fair. This financial crisis, in all honesty, was 2 parts, right? It was people clearly doing predatory loans, and people clearly taking loans beyond their means.
Right.
That is 2 parts, right? If you're working a minimum wage job, you can't afford a $400,000 house. You just probably can't afford that. Okay, don't take out the loan to get it. if you're
Show me the math.
Also,
Show me the math.
if you're the bank, don't give the loan to somebody that's on minimum wage.
Exactly.
A $400,000
Yeah,
house.
fair enough.
Clearly, they're going to default on.
Fair enough.
Right? Like I said, there's blame to go around for this financial crisis. In this particular movie, they do a lot of things to put the blame on banks. Obviously, the very first quote that ends up on the first, outside, 3 tours in Iraq, where's my bailout? That mentality of, we were left behind essentially. We're the forgotten man. And that's kind of what these themes are for these, some
Yeah,
of
I
these
mean,
movies.
we're defending the country, right?
Yeah. Well, this
We're your
particular
boots on the
person-
ground.
Yeah.
And you bail out people who made poor decisions on a managerial level for
Well, it's also the
banks.
idea that you can a billionaire can get a bailout,
Yeah.
but the minimum wage worker cannot. And,
Right.
And that's
and who's that benefit
right? Or
in the end?
the minimum wage
Who's
worker.
that truly benefit?
Right. The minimum wage worker can steal a loaf of bread and go to jail or get fined or prisoned, punished. The billionaire though can seem to steal billions and kind of gets to walk away from it. That
Slap
kind of
on the wrist.
mentality, right?
Yeah, I think there's valid criticisms. in this
Yeah, I'm
movie.
just
I mean,
curious if the treatment of the banks is like, because I think the bad guy is the bank.
I agree. Yeah, I think that the commentary definitely falls hardest
But
on
but,
how that.
but what's funny is that the bank is not really a person in this. Like there's no
Right.
like there's usually like there's like a
Yeah.
like bank manager that's like the real villain. Like if you don't have the money to me, I'm taking your house.
Yeah,
you
but
know?
there's a morality issue
Right.
there that's not really present when a bank is performing calculations based on a formula.
Right.
And you're saying, oh, they're the bad guy. And we're like, well, you can't conform to the loan or whatever.
Well-
And it does go down to predatory loans.
You do have the guy at the end.
They
who's
have
figurehead kind of.
Yeah,
yes,
exactly.
But he's not malicious. He just seems to be a figurehead because you think he's going to wait to fax it to basically like you're assuming that he's going to screw over the mom's the property somehow, right?
Well, it's greed.
Yeah.
Right? You're assuming that the people that are doing that for the best interest of the bank or the company that they're working for is going to do it for profit, which is what companies are there for. They're there to make money. How much money? That's where the greed and the gray area lies in.
I don't want to get too much of my personal life on this, but the scene at the end where Chris Pine makes the banker fax it with him there. Like, we went through a situation where we lost out on a house, like, that we were anticipating to move into, because the person on the other side of things with the bank we were using did not send the documents when they were supposed to send them.
Sure.
And then called us the following week saying, hey, congratulations, assuming everything had worked out just fine, when in fact it had fallen through. They were oblivious, even though we tried multiple times to get them to send all these documents. So, like, I don't know, that part hit me on a personal level. Like, when Chris Pine's like, no, I'm going to watch you fax this. So I get it. Like,
I love that
When-
accountability.
Yeah.
But hold on.
Do what you say you're going
But
to
let's
do.
also flip this the other way. They don't, if I may be incorrect here, they don't really tell you what Chris Pine did as an occupation prior to this.
right.
Okay? We do know Ben Foster's in jail. Okay? Probably poor decisions have led to the fact that they're not really in a position to help their mother keep their land. Had Ben Foster not be in jail, maybe they can get a job and come up with $25,000 between
Maybe
the
so.
two of them to pay off the loan.
Yes, to be clear, robbing banks is not the solution. Like, I shouldn't need to disclaim that, but obviously
But here's
that's a
the
wrong thing
like,
to do.
Why don't you
But-
go to another bank that isn't aware, or maybe is aware, that you own oil on that property, right?
Well,
Take out a loan against the other bank, pay it off, put it in your possession, and then pay off the interest.
yeah, I don't know. They just don't seem to have. Nobody has a job. Like the idea of like, well, why would I want a job? Like, to pay off that.
All you
difference,
see is
so-
bail out this and bail out that. Yeah,
so
yeah.
it's interesting. Who wins the movie in this?
Ben Foster.
Foster, for sure.
I think Jeff Bridges
Yeah.
wins it.
Oh, I think Chris Pine wins it. Got some
First off-
hot takes here.
First off, Taylor Sheridan clearly wins this.
Okay, fair point.
Okay.
Yes.
I don't think David
Really good
Mackenzie
movie.
does. As a director, he did do The Outlaw King on Netflix with Chris Pine.
Oh,
That's
yeah,
kind of
I
his
haven't
other
seen
big movie. So,
To your point about the controversy between the five of us, I think that's an ode to him as to how well he wrote this,
Yeah.
right?
Oh,
Because
yeah.
you want Ben Foster takes away so many great lines.
Yeah.
He can steal a scene unrelentingly.
But he also wrote a movie that you can believe this and you can get behind this as an idea of a bank being evil, no matter where you live. the themes of this movie.
To where the bad guys are the good guys.
Or the bad guys are businesses. Like, you know, these ivory towers, wealthy people, you know, not arguably 1%ers, right? He wrote something that, again, this movie can take place in West Texas. This movie could also take place in New York City. It can. A bank can foreclose on somebody's property.
Oh yeah, it
anywhere.
can happen anywhere.
This story could have transitioned anywhere. It happens to work well in this political climate, being in a small West Texas, predominantly white town, right? But it could happen California, could happen Chicago, could happen Florida, could happen anywhere. And I think that's what's so great about this story is it's universal. And
maybe that brings some very good questions as to the setting and kind of the racial portion of this too. Is like it can happen to anyone.
Yeah.
Right? The bad guys are the banks. It's not necessarily a racial thing at all.
But I think that's the point, though, is this could happen anywhere. I do believe most predatory lending during the financial crisis happened to African American communities, you know, and those people were unevenly hit. And I think that's one of those things where, again, this is depicting simply the anxiety of like white males in America today, and that they're feeling left behind, where there's arguably other communities that have been left behind the entire time and haven't had the ability to kind of be where that position of Chris Pine is, right? There would be somebody that's going to look at Chris Pine and be like, you know, you still have this, and this going for you. Yeah. Whereas if I was in your position under my same demographics, it would be even worse.
Yeah.
You know, it's kind of interesting, you know.
Their white privilege card expired.
Sure. You know, I mean, there's an interesting point where I think at the maybe it's
Alberto makes that point.
Yeah, he does.
In the movie.
Yeah.
He says that this was my land before. It was taken from me, and now it's being taken from you, from kind of your own people.
From
those
the banks.
guys over there.
Yeah, he points to the bank.
Yeah.
100%.
Vicious cycle.
He has no remorse for it. He's like, yeah.
This movie can't really get a reboot or a sequel.
Right.
It's kind of getting, like, just the themes that Taylor Sheridan does got sequels, and it's getting kind of a TV show with Yellowstone. So let's do this. Movie ranking. Give it a... I keep forgetting. Did we settle on a number?
Thumbs up, gold stars, numbers.
Plus 10 points.
Plus and minus.
Yes, it is a 10-point rating system that we are using.
I'm going to give this one I'll give this one an 8.
I think that's what I gave it.
I would agree. 8 out of 10.
I'll give it a 7.5.
Jeez.
It's a little slow.
Tough critic.
For some people watching.
Tough critic. Yeah, okay. It's not Point Break.
Like, but there's like I'll think this is the bad way. Like, there's an intellectual element to where, like, you can't just sit there and just, like, oh, it's action all the time. You have to actually think about, like, the implications of what's going on in this environment, too.
I agree.
So I'll give it a 7.5.
It's not mind-numbing like The Town, you know, is, or some of these other bank, you know, heist movies. This is a movie that you could. I mean, I would argue you could watch it and think nothing of it, but man, you could deep dive this movie in so many different ways.
Yeah.
It's more relatable. More people can relate to it.
Absolutely. Yeah. Joe, I want to make sure we didn't leave out anything. You had a couple things you were putting pins in. Did we cover everything?
Yeah, we did, actually.
Okay.
Everything on my list, anyway.
So, next up, our next movie is going to be Wind River. It's also on Netflix, so you can all go out and watch that ahead of time. This is going to be another movie that he actually wrote and he directs it. This is his first movie he directed.
Very cool.
It is going to be the story of a murder of a Native American woman on a reservation, the Wind River Reservation, and Elizabeth Olsen and Jeremy Renner are going to play basically an FBI agent and essentially a wildlife reservation officer to try to solve this murder.
Gotcha.
And it is great cast. Gil Birmingham, who played Alberto, will be back in this, as well as a couple other people we'll see in some other of his works. I love this movie too. I think it's great.
The Punisher.
The Punisher.
Next appearance.
And this one?
Yeah. Wind River?
Oh, yeah, John Burtnall, or whatever.
Oh,
yeah. Yes.
Oh, does he?
Yeah.
Yeah.
That's
Okay, I got
I kept
you.
thinking of Jane Thomas or whatever it is, and I'm like...
Jane Thomas,
I'm like,
no.
What? You know, I was like, who?
Not the Punisher, the Punisher.
I didn't realize he's in Sicario then, too. Is he not?
No, he's not Sicario.
Is he not in Sicario?
No, he's not Sicario.
Porn John Burke.
We haven't confused you enough.
Yeah.
Anyways, digressing.
Tune in
here.
next week.
Yeah, Wind River. Good
Watch it on
transition,
Netflix.
Joe. Go out, give us a 5-star rating, leave us a review, tell your friends, tell your family, tell your mom. We will, Joe and I, again, still getting the Watchmen podcast together. We do know the trailer released. Again, we're going to try to cover a brief part of that trailer and just kind of do a synopsis of that real quick. We'll do that when we do the breakdown of the movie, which we still have to get together to do.
Yep.
Again, we have till October, so we're not trying to put out too much content. We've basically got that feed up and running just in case. We're only going to release 2 movie reviews on that basically before we start the episode review, and it starts in October.
Did you make your Rorschach masks?
No.
No.
Not with where they're taking these characters.
Yeah.
So tune into that. Again, that's Watchmen for Nixon Podcast. Go out there and subscribe to that. Give us a rating. We'll be back next week with Wind River. Nelly, are you coming back next week?
Yeah.
Okay.
I think so.
All right.
Awesome.
Perfect. Until then, guys, cheers.
Cheers.
Cheers.